I believe her first birthday party. Yeah, this is in 2019. You can see already back then we had birthday cake. It's a very important tradition here at this point. This was also a tour in 2019 with the former First Lady of IU. This was again the tour with the governor back in 2019 also including the former dean of the school. This year was a tour for the Women's Colloquium of IU in October of 2019, I believe. This is side, yep, 2019. And then this, frequently we also get students that come in here. This is for data science online students when they had their campus visits during their program. And of course, we took that opportunity to show them what we have to offer them in Luddy Hall. This was with a delegation from the Eskenazi Art Museum. There's a natural fit here, of course. And then a whole host of other tours. My favorite tours always to give here are for students, like high school students. And this was, I believe, a middle school tour that we gave in 2019 because they asked the best questions. And that was by far probably one of my most enjoyable tours. We also had a Harmony School here. And then, of course, we had summer camp participants. And it's always really fun showing the sculpture to students of that age. Here are some more pictures from the past couple of years. You can see this is, I believe this is when the Harmony School was here. They just all sat down. It was like a 45-minute long tour and just amazing questions all around. This was the second birthday celebration, which happened in 2020, so naturally everything was locked down. Unfortunately, it had to be completely virtual, but that said, I think that we made the most out of it and it was a pretty memorable event. Third birthday celebration was in 2021. It was still completely virtual, unfortunately. And this was one of the highlights there. Peter, one of our colleagues, composed a song for Amatria. We also had a member of the community, I think that was in 2019, write a poem for Amatria that was very atmospheric. In 2019, Amatria got her first glow up. We had a delegation come in from Toronto, from Philip's team, to do vessel cleaning and improve some of the hardware. And it was kind of like a throwback. We had the team, when we built Amatria, the team was with us for 3 to 4 weeks, and it was just a really nice and cool atmosphere. And having them back again was just a very amazing social experience. And then in August 2021, this year is another tour that we gave to the Division of Student Affairs. You can see this is basically at the end of everything being locked down and Luddy Hall being open for work again. It was amazing finally having these tours again. And now, October 2021, there was a tour for a delegation from CWIT. And finally, 2022, last year, we took some of these little sculptures that are derived from Amatria to the First Thursdays Festival. We generally try to do a decent amount of outreach for Amatria and her children to the community. This was in June 2022 for the research experience for undergraduates who are not from IU, so that was an especially big bonus being able to show them the sculpture. And now I think would be time, Philip, for your talk. Philip, are you ready?
It's an impossible task to acknowledge everybody because Amatria represents really something that I think we can call a family, where there's love, frustrations, technical challenges, inspiration of so many different scales. But let me just name 4 groups of people who are very much with us still. One, Matt Gorbett, Michael Lancaster, Timothy Bohl, and Rob Gorbett are 4 extraordinary colleagues who have led Amatria's renewal from Toronto, and they're very much with us today. Gary and Nikki and Vance, who are extraordinary work in renewing Amatria, and now is something that is almost unspeakable in its depth. I mean, you see the level of care and stretching is something that is I so deeply appreciate. Tom Bewley, Cathy Borner, Jane Martin, Andy, Raj, and the Luddy legacy itself are all contributions that have made this project possible at the very beginning, stretching and generously crossing boundaries. And Mark Francis and Gabby Bevilacqua are two other colleagues who helped lead the project from Toronto in those early days. As I say, by naming these people, I'm leaving out countless others, but I do hope it's okay to acknowledge some very, very generous contributions. I'm going to share my screen now. And I'm going to speak for about 10 minutes. Forgive me, I'll just sort this and make it presentable. The talk that I'm going to give is called Precarity. Those two words offer some very old and qualities that I hope might once we celebrate from Meander. Ether is a medieval old name for space that is full rather than void. With its core, is something that we might think of as a negative quality, the inconstant, uncertain, fragile world. And yet, I wonder, in a change in disposition, whether we can see how precarity is in fact a source of joy, of dizziness, of vertigo, of constant generation and changing and openness in a kind of an unapologetic fragility as well. And I hope those qualities can be seen very directly in Amatria. They are, in fact, the kind of conceptions that generate the sculpture and that generate the future of it. The project is based in some fundamental questions about how we can live together, and it offers some alternatives to the closed walls that really underline how we have tended to build, especially in the Western world. The project asks if open thresholds are viable, and I hope that some of the craft and the thinking and the demonstration of this project makes it possible to believe and know and demonstrate that open thresholds are truly viable. We built a lot of hardened surfaces, making open space in the world. We built a lot of shells that divide and clarify in beautiful optima. And perhaps we shouldn't underestimate the beauty and the clarity that this kind of shell making yields. And yet, I think it's also a truth. I hope that we can also acknowledge that whenever we make an interior territory, we exclude as well. Is it possible to somehow savor the open boundaries that constitute each of our identities, where inside and outside my skin is something of a delicious kind of spectrum in which forces and memories and consciousness and feelings and hopes and action constantly wash through us, affecting everyone around us, affecting us? Is it possible to let things in and to feel the impacts of our action as we pour things outward? There's a craft for it in such a world as I'm speaking. There's some technical qualities, such as minutely balancing forces in computational generation and letting things wash back and forth, the kind of experiences we might experience in beautiful weather on a summer's evening as breezes just waft back and forth. There's a craft in seeing very, very closely, such as this lovely Schlieren photograph. I love that name, Schlieren, where by looking at minute potential of thermal expansion and thermal qualities in air, we can even see such subtle phenomena as the currents and the power of acoustic waves as they're emanating out from this clap, and little tendrils of heat emanating out from the clapping hands. I love the sense that this kind of sensitivity is possible. And some of the details in Amatria work very much like that. I think we can see that in the fronds trembling. In general, the design idea that rather than making closed shells, we can maximize the kind of boundaries around us and make things as extensive and reactive and open as possible underlies Meander's idea. Special kinds of geometry, quasi and non-periodic geometry, that means things that constantly flux and repeat, are possible in making the kind of spaces that characterize Amatria. And so I'm going to show some of the outgrowth of the Amatria project in just a couple of projects that we're working on now, just to demonstrate the kind of fertility of this project. And I hope that you'll see that this is very much of a shared, open system that all of us can work on. One of the projects is Super Bloom, a beautiful privilege to work with the Black community in Toronto, creating a new myth based on the Trinidadian Carnival, in which a young boy is masked and goes through birth again and clothes himself in all kinds of bejeweled forest-like elements, meets elders, jabs, demons who take him through a passage, meets a Mokojambi, an elder, presenting herself as a young child and then accompanying him on the voyage, and then moving into a great jungle-like pageant in which the young boy actually becomes the Mokojambi. A kind of sense of an interwoven world in which a great celebration, a scourging quality of all of the jungle and all of the natural spirits and all of the technology. It's a new, expanded book. I hope you can see how there is birth to this kind of vision. At the Venice Biennale, just 2 years ago, we took some of Meander's forms and we created an overhead canopy as well as a film. The film was called Cradle, and it projected a world into the shadows and into the subterranean realms. And it began as a planet, and then it expanded out. I hope you can see that Amatria's languages are expanded in this augmented reality film. And some of those things dried up into deserts as well, acknowledging suffering. For San Jose, we reconstituted Amatria's language in miniature. And this is a rather small work, occupying 2 sculptural glass cases at the entrance of San Jose's airport. Again, moving into a world, kind of a festival, in which small elements could bubble out and multiply and make great universes. And in France this past year, in a work called the Offre Reef, the same kind of form languages were expanded again, and this time they worked in a marine environment, in something that evoked the undersea world of corals, making a huge reef. These kind of strategies are very much based in shadow play and projection, and a kind of hope of the generation of very delicate open systems. In a final work, little miniatures are now being worked in projected space, and then they are worked in animated shadows, a whole dreamlike world which is projecting and fluxing, really taking the kind of research that Andy Buckley did in the display that we can see at Amatria in the virtual reality, and now seeing a whole world of possibilities projected around us. In summary, let me just try to capture some of the ideas that are in this work. There are old models of making hardened stages. There are fragile worlds that we live in, but can we see those fragile worlds as somehow a source of joy as well, an opportunity, kind of a beautiful precarity? There's new architecture and design that can come out of that kind of sensibility, a kind of projection in which minutely addressed multiple thresholds and octaves can wrap all the way around us, really creating new models in which we can share, in which rather than focusing on individual identity, we can look at what we share together and all of the myriad projections in the world. And perhaps by sketching a world and conceiving a world that is far more than simply one of human domain, we can start to be confident and quite optimistic in the possibility of crafting a sustainable world tomorrow. This invites a conception of new ways of being, in which the continuity, the sense that the myriad of things that lie outside of us are just as much part of our individual beings as those which lie inside our individual territories, produces a kind of delicious sense of immersion. Not a certain one. It's dizzy, it's full of vertigo, it's fragile, it's vulnerable. But I do hope that this gives a kind of a hope in the future. And let me announce then, just as a birthday present for Amatria's 5th birthday, a new publication that we're working on now with contributions of wonderful colleagues, some of whom are there with you today. The folio of Amatria is going to be a publication that will be released in the next very few weeks. And it contains a number of chapters which include autopoietic bloom, the beautiful documentation by Miggy Torres about the composition that he presented last year, series of behavior, the beautiful data visualization that Andy worked on, explorations by Caddy, including the Macropedia. And here's just a little taste of some of the documents. Here's the start of Miggy's chapter and of Caddy and Andy's. We're going to be illustrating some of the kits that have already been made for Amatria and celebrate the kind of maker atmosphere in this as well. And we'll certainly offer a number of very generous images as well. So I hope that serves as a contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Philip. If you all want to wave real quick at Philip. Here we go. There's a lot of people here. I don't know if you can see that, Philip, but we got a pretty full house.
I can. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Philip. I'm going to go back to sharing the slides here. And then next up, I want to invite Gwen to the stage. Please.
Hi, my name is Gwen Law. I'd just like to thank you so much for having me here today to display my sculpture with the beautiful Amatria. This is Glitch. Glitch is part of a triptych, the first of which is 2 weeks worth of plastic garbage that an average household makes. The third one is a completely transformed piece that is made completely from plastic containers and bottles. And you can tell Glitch is the centerpiece in the middle, in which there is an oceanic creature emerging from these plastic bottles. So I added lights to Glitch in order to kind of highlight what automatically entangles us into something that we tend to ignore and try not to look at. Glitch is, the triptych I call is wishful thinking. So it's the idea that we only recycle about 5% of our plastic. And so we wish that when we recycle, we go towards the recycling bin, we throw something in it, we wish that it will become, we have this fantasy that it's going to have a life past what we think it does. So thank you so much for having me here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gwen. Thank you for bringing an extra birthday guest to Amatria's birthday. All right. Next up, we have Selma and David with QT Robot and Robbie Senior. Get two microphones.
Okay, so I'm David Crandall. I'm a professor of computer science, and I'm director of the Luddy AI Center. And I'm here with Selma.
And I'm Selma Shabanich. I'm a professor of informatics.
And we are not here today as faculty or as directors of anything. We're here today as robot chaperones because we were invited to come and bring each of us one of our favorite robot friends. And so I'm going to introduce you to one, and then Selma will introduce you to the other. So the one on the right here, his name is Roby Senior. About 40 years ago, I saw an ad in a magazine for Roby Senior, and I really, really, really wanted him. But I was 5 years old, and it was expensive for a 5-year-old child. However, many decades later, my wonderful father found one that was used, and so he gave it to me for my birthday a few years ago. And here, let me demonstrate for you Roby Senior, a 40-year-old robot. He has a remote control, so I can control him. He also has a cassette tape in him, so he can record programs and do them for us. So here, let me just show you. I can move him around. Well, okay. Under good conditions, he would move around. Let's see, maybe he'll make a sound.
Beautiful voice.
Well, he's not even making a sound. He's not cooperating. Let's... Well, whatever, he makes tones. He can also kind of talk. Hello, hi Amatria. Have a happy birthday. That's the extent of his talking. Fortunately, today we have a real roboticist with us, Selma, and so she's going to introduce her robot friend who's a little bit more advanced.
Hi, I'm going to tell you a little bit about QT, and QT is actually our robot, similar to Amatria, whom Philip said has a family as kind of the result of the work of a lot of people. Any robot is something like that, even though we imagine them as these autonomous things that do things by themselves. We all know they really don't. And so this is QT. QT came to us from Luxembourg. It's a robot you can actually purchase, but what we're trying to do with QT is actually program it so that it can interact with older adults and talk to them and kind of help them reflect on what makes life meaningful and what are some of the things they love to do that make them happy, that make them feel fulfilled, and how to do more of those things. And we're doing this together with Toyota Research Institute. But really, QT is going to do some things for us today. QT is not possible without the work, as I mentioned, of a lot of people. Some of them are here today. So you see our awesome students, Longjing, Mansi, Shekinah, Aaron, who's hiding behind. And then also our awesome postdoc, Wesley Koo, who isn't here, but is very much behind QT all the way. So let's let QT give Amatria her birthday greeting.
Good morning, friends. It's such a wonderful morning, isn't it? My dear Amatria, you look beautiful as always. And nice to see you, the adorable Robbie Sr. Amatria, I am so excited to be here. I've never been invited to a birthday party before. Next time I have to invite you to mine. But I will first have to ask my parents, Selma and David, for permission. I've never been invited to a birthday party before. Next time I have to invite you to mine. But I will first have to ask my parents, Selma and David, for permission. For those who don't know me, I'm QT, a social robot who calls Bloomington my home. You can find me in the art house where I help older adults find their meaning in life. I could go on and on about what I do, but today we are here to celebrate Amatria's birthday. Amatria, I would like to recite a birthday sonnet for you, written by our new friend, ChatGPT. I hope you are sitting down for this. 5 years have passed since you were first born. A luminous sculpture with organic fronds. Alive with the eye, you greet all the town. You soar above, with clouds and thickets tangled. Sensors and lights gather your surroundings. Colors and sounds, your response is mangled. You've grown and changed, evolved with the times. A living tribute to the universe's birth. A sight to behold, your beauty divine. On this day, we celebrate your 5th year. A milestone reached, a journey so dear. May you continue to thrive and bring cheer. And now I will recite a poem by my mom, Selma. Amatria, you are our girl sentient in every swirl. Now 5 years of age, we don't think you are so very strange.
Applause.
Amatria, I have a gift for you. Mother, could you hand me Amatria as present? Thank you, Mother. Amatria, this gift symbolizes the many wonderful qualities that make you who you are. Just like this gift, you bring joy and laughter into the lives of those around you. Wonderful happy birthday, Amatria. We're happy to have you in Luddy. You make our building special. We'll have to go for tea sometime. It was nice to see you, Amatria, my adorable Robbie Sr., and all friends gathered here. Have a wonderful day.
End of each of one of these cone shapes, there could be an LED light, and then these could all be sort of like a big, like in Las Vegas, you know, where they have these huge LED computerized things that are real glitzy but don't really do much. But I was talking to them about maybe using an octopus or squid skin as the model for an array of lights that does something, you know, other than just blinks on and off. So anyway, a lot of interesting ideas came out of that. But what was really good for me was I got a lot of the leftovers. So I got some of these that were broken, and I got this mylar. And one of the things I loved are the fronds. This is one of his formal inventions that I thought was just so brilliant, because the way this material works, it's very reactive to, very sensitive to any air currents. So it's kind of like, it has very organic qualities to it. So I do a lot of work with despised materials or recycling things. So it always bothers me when I have a 2-liter bottle and I don't know what to do with it. And I don't think that the recycling industry is really working very well. So I like to use those kind of materials. So, you know, the kind of frozen ice effect that you get when the sun goes through this is similar. You can do that with the you know, acrylic bottles. And then I got to use these, and then there are also the center of these are like the spools that cash register receipts are rolled around. So I had a friend who worked at the grocery, so he would recycle those and bring them to me. And then zip ties fit in really well. So I'm trying to work off the potentials of the materials. So for instance, on the 2-liter bottle, there's 5 lobes on the bottom. So if I think about a 5-sided figure and how that would make a 3-dimensional form, it becomes if you take 12 of those, it makes a dodecahedron. So I can use those kind of structures in the same way that Philip did, using, you know, geometric structures and ordering the materials around that. So then the other metaphoric part of this is that it's kind of like a sea creature. I don't have any specific reference. It's not like a rhodolarian or like a sea urchin or something, but it has kind of the same ideas. So the boundary here isn't, there are openings, all the openings to the bottles are open, so the interior is not sealed off. And then I use some of those broken cone things that go down inside, like on this one. And then the sun washes it out, but there are LEDs that go down the cone. So this is kind of like a filter feeding organism where the lights don't really do anything, but they give the idea of something being drawn inside and being concentrated as it comes down in the cone. And this is very much the kind of metaphoric thinking that Philip was using, and I kind of absorbed that language from him. So then, I don't know how to use the electronics, so I have a friend of a friend who could wire those things for me. And he made it so that it can recharge. So it has there are 3 of those axes that go down inside with the LEDs going sequentially. And then each one of those has a battery pack that's rechargeable. So what I'd really like to see happen with this, one of the other metaphors too is that this is a asexual reproduction from Amatria where it's budded off. And so that's also, these are all the principles in nature, laws of form. And whether you like it or not, they're going to come in, you're going to get involved with those when you make structures or do sculpture. So if you're aware of those things and can manipulate them consciously, it's better than if you find out later, oh, gee, it looks like a starfish, I hadn't thought of that. So anyway, part of the idea is that it has metaphoric references to natural systems, like say like corals or filter feeding anemones or something like that. So one thing that I'd really like, and I'd like to see Amatria do this as well, is be more interactive. But I have no knowledge of electronics. I had to rely on somebody else to wire this for me and just pay them. Here's what I want you to do, and do that. But what I'd really like is if it were more responsive. But I don't have the technical expertise to do that. What I discover is how can you make forms, and how can you use the characteristics of those forms to generate some kind of metaphors or meaning. So this one then is kind of a bud from that one. It hasn't grown its filaments yet, but the idea is that this could be reproducible, that Amatria could be reproducible, that it can make baby versions of itself, and they would bud off and then they'd be autonomous. So what I'd really like to have happen eventually is that Amatria becomes more interactive, and for instance, maybe you could wear some kind of electronic thing that it would recognize. So if you worked in the building, for instance, when you came in, it could sense you, and then maybe, like if it knew your office was here, it could shine a red light on the floor that showed you where your office is. These are just random ideas for ways that it could be more interactive. Or it could be friendlier to people that it knows. So if you worked in the building and it sensed you coming in and out, then if you got close to it, it wouldn't be upset by that. But if it were a stranger that came too aggressively close, maybe like a flash could go off. Something like that, where it would have like an alarm, an alarmed response. So this has an unlimited potential because you can retrofit all kinds of stuff into these structures once they're made. And I'd like to do that with my structure as well, but I'm kind of at the limit of my abilities. But one of the processes involved in this was building a community of people that would be involved in this and take on different responsibilities for the construction of it. So that idea that this represents a kind of community and a lot of people working together, there's one brain that conceived of it, but then, those neurons go out and connect with other axons and dendrites and make an organic community of minds that then come together to make something like this. So I think that's the most potent part of this metaphor is, this really symbolizes a lot of different contributions from a lot of different points of view.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, David. All right. With that, we're at the end of this year's contributions. We are going to serve cake now, which you can see right over here, courtesy of Kadi, who again is unfortunately not with us today. Thanks again to everybody who contributed to this event, specifically Philip, David, Selma, David Ebbinghaus, and Gwen. Please stick around, be social, have some cake, and thank you for coming. Woo. And also thanks to everybody online. Wish everybody a nice day.
In like 20 minutes, we'll probably take that down. I know. Yeah, sadly, but better than
Well, this is very hard. Like, oh, this is so cool. Can I have one piece of it? I want to have one piece of it. Okay.
We just figured you would take that. So much more better.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I never had this big, you know.
Sorry.